Is it time to move on? Hi, my name is Jeff Raker. Welcome to the question for today. I've asked this question before. You've asked this question before. Maybe you need to ask this question again. In coaching, I don't tell a client what to do. We might try some experiments. I might give some thoughts and suggestions if they're open, but my job isn't to say, time for you to move on. If you move on, now let's talk about that. That's coaching. But I'm meeting some clients who are wondering, is it time to move on? How do I know? A mentor early on in my career said, you move on the year before you have to. I'm like, thanks a lot. But he was right. How do you know when it's time to move on? I've begun asking some questions around that. What would you regret if you moved on? What would you lose if you stayed? What have you lost over the past couple of years in this position? What would you like to be different if you stayed? What would have to change? Because you're going to meet intransigent, difficult people wherever you go. So that's not going to change. What has to change is ultimately you and your approach to those people. How do you deal with difficult people? How do you deal with people who don't keep their word? How do you deal with people who are lazy? They just don't go for mastery and perfection. How do I know when it's time to move? Should I move on? Should I stay? Ask the questions around this. What would I regret? What do I want to be different? Because ultimately you have to remember that if you move, you take yourself with you. Well, if I took myself, what problems would stay with me? Now we have something to work on, because ultimately you only control you, not other people. Stay, move. It's a valid question that comes along in our lives at different times. What will you do, and how will you discover that? Level up your leadership with this question for today.